Senator
bill?
DeFrancisco, on the bill.
You know, I really don't know what to say about this dialogue that just took place. On the one hand, we can't get Senator Kruger to answer questions any longer. He's had his limit. God forbid he be asked more than 5 or 6 questions and have to answer them as chairman of finance. But even more importantly, the answers that were given really, by any standard, would be considered non-responsive. We have a comptroller in the state of New York who happens to be a Democrat who was appointed to replace someone who had to step down from office, who's warning everybody that we are in deep trouble, even deeper than we ever expected, that we're going to not have enough money to pay bills in June. Now, to me, that's a pretty serious situation. And it's a pretty serious situation when he says that the only way that this is going to be resolved is to have a responsible budget. To not get any information, to have to read newspapers and tell our constituents second or third or fourth hand by rumor because we can't get responsive answers and we can't get any information and we're knocked out of the process is just appalling. It truly is appalling. And the part that's even more amazing is Senator Kruger specifically says, we don't want to negotiate this on the floor. We don't want to negotiate between us. What are we here for? Are we here to wait for the bill to come on the floor like last year and say yes or no without any input? Is that what we're waiting for?
Senator Kruger, why do you rise?
As a point of information, to the Senator's response, through you, Madam President, I did not say that we should not debate the budget on the floor. I said that I did not want to debate the budget with him when we don't have a budget. But the point that I want to make, and very, very clearly, is if we want to...
Would Senator Kruger yield to a question?
I have the floor, Senator.
I'm asking...
No.
I'm asking...
Senator DeFrancisco has the floor.
I think I had the floor, and he interjected without asking a question, so I believe he's out of order. You're out of order.
Senator DeFrancisco, I have recognized that you have the floor. I make the rulings, though.
I have the floor?
You do have the floor. Senator Kruger has risen, though, and I asked him why he rises, and he wanted to make a point. Were you going to ask Senator DeFrancisco to yield to a question, Senator
Yes,
Kruger?
I am.
Senator DeFrancisco, will you yield for a question?
Of course, I'll yield to any question that my colleague wants to ask me. This is a democracy in this room.
It certainly is.
Thank you so much, Senator. Through you, Madam President, my question, I guess, is predicated on your statement that I was not willing to argue the budget bill on the floor. Do you realize that this is not a budget bill as a budget, but this is purely an emergency extender of our spending plan?
Of course I realize that.
Will the Senator yield for another question?
Senator DeFrancisco, do you continue to yield?
Of course.
Senator DeFrancisco continues to yield.
And Senator, in light of the fact of your statement that the comptroller is deeply concerned over whether or not we have cash on hand to pay our June bills, wouldn't it be a fair statement to say that not to vote for today's extender and basically close down government would be an irresponsible act?
The answer to that is there is an alternative. There's an alternative, as I proposed last week, the week before that, and that is to start opening budget negotiations so that maybe some progress will be made one week, the next week, rather than continuing on with this process. So my point simply is you can't go on indefinitely with 1 week extenders with a process that is totally dysfunctional, without any information getting out to other members of the body, without any public dialogue, without any following the law, without the public being part of the process. That's the alternative.
Through you, Madam President, would the Senator yield to another question?
You continue to yield? Senator DeFrancisco continues to yield.
Senator, while we use the words negotiate in an open process, and we talk about transparency and accountability, once again, my question to you is today, while we move in that direction, wouldn't a negative vote today against this extender and close down government be an irresponsible act?
Senator Kruger, I would support this particular piece of legislation if I felt that government was closed down if I didn't. However, I don't believe government would close down if I didn't. I would think that it would mean that we would have to start a process immediately to get a negotiation started. Now, if you want to make an amendment to this particular bill that will go 1 week more, but during that week we'll follow the 2007 law, we'll open up the process, we'll let the public know what's going on, you'll be able to answer the questions about what's agreed to, what isn't, what's on the table, so the public can go in. I'd support this in a minute. But you can't even answer a question as to what's going on, let alone give me a comfort level or anyone else a comfort level in this room that something is really happening this week, so we won't go into next week, the week after, and into the summer and the fall.
Through you, Madam President, would the senator yield for another question?
Senator
Yes.
DeFrancisco, he continues to
Thank
yield.
you, Madam President. At 12 o'clock midnight tonight, the extender that currently exists expires. Are you familiar with what happened in Michigan when their extender wasn't renewed?
I'm not familiar specifically with Michigan, but I suppose bills wouldn't be paid, just like the governor is deciding right now not to pay bills that he chooses not to pay.
Okay, through you, Madam President, when the extender expired in Michigan for 4 hours, 53,000 employees and 35 were let go, 35,000 employees were suspended, including 4/5 of the state police. Highway rest stops were barricaded, drawbridges were left open, and traffic cameras turned off. Campers were ordered to leave state parks, freeway rest stops were barricaded, drawbridges were left open. Traffic monitoring cameras went dark at midnight. Branch offices of the Department of Motor Vehicles posted signs over the weekend saying that they were closed. State lottery operations, liquor sales, and road construction was halted immediately. Unemployment offices were closed and no unemployment checks were issued to those 35,000 employees. And the list goes on. And that was after 4 hours of their effort not to take a responsible position and to vote for an extender.
I have the floor back again now that he's
Thank you, Madam
made his
President.
speech.
Yes, Senator DeFrancisco on the bill.